then we'll start. So go online and then cut to okay. Today we talk about the extinctions. So let me share screen first. Let me share screen. This screen. Share. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
19.
Okay. Okay, start. Mass extinction. The big five and the current sixth. So actually there are more than five extinctions. What we are talking about are the big ones. So in an extinction, we are talking about 98% of all the known life forms are now extinct. So this is looking in the past. Okay, there are lots of species which no longer exist today, and there are different periods, and the geographic time scale is usually using the extinction as the border. So there's extinction, then you see the life forms different, and the geologists name their layer by the characteristics of life forms, and therefore in between a different time scale, it represents the there is a extinction. So maybe this is more easy explained with this diagram. The vertical axis represent the amount, the percentage of life form which is extinct. So, for example, at around 250 forms are dead. So that is marked by the hi.
Oh, but is this,
Sorry,
but does this count primitive life forms?
all life forms,
Really?
including primitive or not primitive. It doesn't matter. Okay. So we have
Gee.
Jesus, isn't it? There are lots and lots of extinctions, and of course, there's a constant background extinction at around 10%. At the moment, it's about 5%, but currently it is sitting at around 60 something percent. So we are undergoing a extinction event at the moment. But anyway, this is the rough estimate of the amount of extinctions during different times. So we are looking at the 5 extinctions with the star there. Okay, so these are the 5 we are interested at the moment. Obviously, there are other ones which is also as significant. For example, right after at around 500 to 542 million years ago, there's a lot of extinctions. But somehow, because at that time the life form is not big enough for people to actually see very accurately when these 5 big are determined. So they are not counted in here. But actually, you can see that during the about 530 million years ago, it's almost 40%, 2 of them. So there are many of these extinction events. So the big five is actually suggested by 2 people in 1982. So these are named on the screen. They suggested the big 5. So we already see that there's actually more than 5, but it's just that they selected this 5 as the big extinction, and we are concentrating on this one. But there are other extinctions later discovered. The amount of extinction to be considered big is very subjective. What do you mean by a big extinction? Okay, so that is a subjective criteria. Of course, we can set in some criteria. For example, let's say if there is 30% estimate, then we call it big. Then, in other words, then the big 5 will be a little bit different. For example, the one which is between 350 400 million years ago, that one is not up to 30%. So again, this is a very subjective measure whether we call it big or small. But anyway, these two gentlemen decided that these are the big five, so we use that. To us, we are not academic, so we are not interested in the argument which is big, which is small, and what is the criteria and so forth. But we understand that this is a subjective criteria. The species counted is also a subjective criteria, because after all, what we are trying to look at are the species in the fossils. And we know that the fossils may not be able to capture all species. Some species just doesn't have sufficient luck to exist as a fossil. So that is one. So, and then the fossils are constantly being discovered. So as the fossils are being discovered, the number will change. So again, to us, it is not academic. We don't want to argue whether it is exactly 30% or 31 or 30. Anyway, this we just understand it as a major extinction. A lot of life forms are dead in between the two times. So we will have to ask, why? Why suddenly there are such an extinction event? So let's look at these big five. But usually it is called by the two geological names. So this one at around 450 million years ago, it is between two geological names. One is Ordovician and another is Silurian, something like that. I can't pronounce the words, but so it's
Silurian.
Sorry again.
Silurian.
Silurian. Okay, when it's Silurian, what's the other one? The Ordovician. Ordovician. Okay, so it is in between these two geological time scale. So we will name it as the OS extinction, or you can pronounce it correctly with the name. Okay, so these are the extinction. Hello. Okay, for this event, it is said to be the second largest, occurred between 450 to 440 million years ago. These are two pulses which are separated only by about 1 million years. So looking at the depletion, now of course we don't have photographs at that time, so these are artists drawing conceptualization of what happened. So it is caused by an ice age. Now this is the Earth at that time. No, I think this is the wrong picture.
Yeah, the wrong picture.
Yeah, this is the wrong picture.
It would have been crowded up together then.
Yeah, it said it's because of the two regions colliding with each other and moving to the South Pole, and that lead to a global cooling and glaciation and subsequent sea level fall. The falling sea level disrupted and eliminated habitats along the coastal continental shelves. So again, there are glaciation evidence. But again, this is not as big as the snowball world we talked about last time. But there is a lot of glaciation, and therefore a lot of animals cannot survive in the cold and therefore die. And plant as well. This is preceded by a fall in atmospheric carbon dioxide. Again, is the carbon dioxide wrecking chaos. The dip is correlated with a burst of the volcanic activity that deposit new silica rocks, which draw carbon dioxide out from the air. So again, is the weathering. Of course, there are other people's explanation. For example, another argument is that there might be a large gamma ray burst from a supernova about 6,000 light years from Earth, and that's gamma ray might cause a little bit, a lot of damage to our ozone layer, and the ozone layer exposing our living organisms to the high level of ultraviolet radiation from our sun, and therefore kill a lot. There are a lot of other explanations. Nobody's exactly sure why there's a why there's extinction, but mainly the extinction event draw into several different categories. So this one represent a change in climate, and the second event occurred with the melting glacier, and then for 1,000,000 years, the time gap here is large enough for a lot of life form to adapt. But immediately after the adaptation, and then a sudden change, for example flooding, and therefore again suddenly a lot of animals die, or a lot of plants die. And then the second one is at the late Devonian extinction. This one is depleted like this, so it is assumed to be a dry event. So it is about 374 million years ago. It is estimated that about 90% of families and 50% of all the genera went extinct. Again, the exact timing is just estimates. At that time, plants which have been on land in form similar to mosses, the wasps, or lichens has now started develop roots and seeds. The water transport system changed, and then we probably will see some fish, and the tadpoles are beginning to appear. So that is the Devonian World. During this period, about 8 to 10 distinct events can be seen, of which 2 stand out as particularly severe. So these are the 2. We are not going to go into details of that. It is again difficult to assign a single cause to the event. One potential is a asteroid impact. So if there is a large piece of rock falling from sky, that will create a lot of dust, and the dust may block the sunlight and kill the plants. The plant die, and animals also die. So there is a very large link between them. During that, at the beginning of this Devonian period, plant is about 30 cm height, but to the end it is about 30 meters high. So in between that, the plant had evolved quite a bit. Plants had evolved to be able to produce wood in order to support its height. The production of wood also require trees to have a very deep rooting system in order to acquire water and nutrients and provide anchorage. So this type of activity break up the bedrocks and stabilize a deep layer of soil, and then the biological sphere actually changed by the trees. This change produced 2 effects. One is wood is a carbon sink. That means it's storing a lot of carbon, and therefore the atmospheric carbon dioxide percentage while remain constant, but the amount of oxygen increased significantly until the nature evolved the microbes to digest wood. At that time, the wood is not being digested. That means it remains at root, and that becomes our coal. So there's a lot of coal during that period, because at that time the plants evolved to produce wood, while there's no microorganisms to digest the wood, so the wood remains as wood. during that process, it produces a lot of oxygen. And the consequence of that one is that the oxygen is so huge that enable animals to grow to very large size. So there's a giantism. That means all the animals becomes very large. The mobilization of a large portion of soil has huge effect. Soil promotes weathering and chemical breakdown of rocks, releasing ions which treat as nutrients, and therefore the plants are extracting a lot of nutrients from the minerals. The relative sudden input of nutrients into river water may cause subsequent anoxia. A lot of plants, just like what happened today when there's too much nutrients in our water. Again, we talk about the plant evolution. The covering is now the whole planet is basically covered by photosynthesizing land plants, and we have the first forests. The plants promote weathering by exposing silica bedrocks, which again draw down carbon dioxide, and that causes again glaciation. Okay, the next one, as we said about, we know that in the Triassic period, the animals are big, are huge dinosaurs. That means during the previous period, there's a lot of oxygen into the atmosphere. The oxygen level is much higher than what we see today. So for this particular extinction event, which is about 251 million years ago, about 57% of all families, 83% of all genera, and 90% to 96% of all species gone. The evidence for the plant is less clear, but new taxa becomes dominant after the extinction, or this is called the Great Dying. In the Triassic and the Jurassic period, again, a lot of animals die, and these are the data, about 23% families, 48% genera, So these are a huge amount of species dead. Okay, the last one is the KT extinction. K stands for the Cretaceous, and then P is the Paleogene. Okay, so it's also called KT or KBG, about 66 million years ago. Again, about 70% of all family, 50% of all genera, and 75% of all species become extinct. And this extinction enabled mammals and birds to emerge as a dominant species. Again, before that period, we know that we have giant animals. So the giant animals dominated the earth, and therefore smaller animals like mammals and birds cannot survive, compete with these large animals. So we believe that it is an asteroid strike. So there's a large rock falling from the sky, kill off all the big animals, and the smaller ones survived and eventually evolved into dominant species. Mass extinctions have sometimes accelerated the evolution of life on Earth. Basically, the evolution is driven by competition. So there is a ecological niche. If that ecological niche is occupied by a certain animal, for example, then other animals are very difficult to get into it, and therefore suppress the other types of animal development. But once the dominant species is removed through extinction, suddenly the ecological niche is available. Once the ecological niche is available, then we have a new pulse of rapid evolution trying to compete to get to that ecological niche. Once you get into the niche and become dominant, then you occupy the niche for a long time before the next event will change the world again. So evolution is very much driven by extinctions. Every time when there's extinctions, then we see that the life form becomes much more complex. Mammals existed during dinosaurs. Do you know the difference between dinosaurs and mammals? Mammal is characterized by giving birth as a small copy of the species, while birds give birth to an egg, and then the egg need to be what's that called? Poke? Is that no? The chicken sitting on an egg. What's that called?
Incubate.
Incubate. Yeah, thank you. Incubate. Eggs need to be incubated. But for mammals, the egg is incubated inside the mother until it's become big enough and then get birth. And then the little animal will depend on mother's milk. Whereas the birds doesn't depend on the mother milk. They will eat almost directly similar to adult food, but sometimes the adult will digest the food before feeding to the young. But basically the difference is here. And yeah,
didn't some dinosaurs survive and evolve into birds?
A bird is a
That's
type
the
of dinosaur.
theory that I've heard.
Yeah, bird is a type of dinosaur.
Well, an evolution from a dinosaur.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Bird.
when you're talking about animals not laying eggs, there are, of course, the few exceptions, such as the platypus.
Well, we still have a lot of animals which laying eggs today. Fish. Some of the fish still lay eggs. Some of the fish will give birth to smaller fish, but some lay eggs. Shrimps lay eggs. And then on land we have birds lay eggs. What else? Turtles lay eggs. Yeah, there's a lot of animals to lay eggs.
But the platypus is, I think, the only mammal that actually lays eggs.
Is that? I don't know. I don't know whether platypus is. I'm not a biologist, but anyway, the main distinction is mammals will drink mother's milk while it's young. And the reason why humans is mammal is that it is only through being a mammal that we can evolve the very expensive brain. Now, brain is very expensive in terms of energy. It is about 5% of our body weight. Except me, it is less than 5% because I'm too heavy in the body. But for generally, we have about the brain represents about 5% of our body weight, but it consumes about 25% of our rest state energy. So if we are not moving, not exercising, the brain is eating up 25% energy. So it is very expensive. Now, in order to have this very expensive brain getting bigger and bigger, in order to be more intelligent, we need to get the brain as large as possible when we are given birth. So if it is an egg, then all the energy for the young people is in the egg. So you can't get any bigger than that one. So you need another method of producing a animal with a bigger brain. So it must be mammal. And the second thing is for the brain to continue to grow, that means you are sacrificing the body. And therefore, our young baby today, when it's born, is almost useless. Can't do anything. Babies can just know how to suck milk and nothing more than that. But with milk, with a mother caring for it, then we can allow the animal to have a longer time to develop its other parts of the body. So while the brain is developing, the body also develops until it can be independent. So it must be mammal in order to have high intelligence. The dinosaur intelligence cannot be very high, but we also know that there are some birds with high intelligence capable of solving problems. But again, our brain is different. We will go to that when we talk about human. Now, many the mammals come out from the dinosaurs. While dinosaurs are ruling the world, mammals can only remain as small animals, sneaking out at night, stealing food and so forth, like rats today. But when these big dinosaurs gone, then they got a chance. One idea is about the food web. So let's look at the food web. Basically, there are three different types of organisms. Herbals, that means they only eat plants. These herbals got their energy from plants, and the plant got their energy from the sun. So we need mineral nutrients to produce plant materials. We need sun to get the plant to grow. And of course, we need water. Then we have the herbals, which eat plants. Then we also have the carnivores, which eat the other animals. But when they die, they will be eaten by the decomposers, which change them back into the minerals, and then which is used for the plants to grow. So this is a complete cycle. Obviously, we need the producers. The producers, many of them are very small. For example, the planktons in the oceans, the mosses, etc., the plants, and then we have the herbal animals, the cow, the sheep, etc., eating all this, and then we have a smaller amount of hunters which will hunt down these herbivores in order to feed them. So this is now the important thing is we talk about the plants producing wood. For a long time, the decomposers is not able to handle the wood, and therefore it gives us the cold today.
Oh, but there's a fourth type, and I can't think of the name of it, but humans eat both animals and vegetables.
Omnivores.
Omnivores, thank you, yeah.
Eat both, yeah. No, a lot of animals develop into eating both, because that is much more adaptive. And I'm training my dog to be an animals as well. Omnivores. Dogs should be a carnivores, but anyway.
No, because they ate the digestive tracts of animals that were killed by larger animals. So they're omnivores.
Okay, dogs are animals. That means I'm right feeding my dog with some plant food.
Yes.
Yep. But it doesn't like to eat plants.
I know.
Meat is much more tastier.
It's got to digest it first.
Okay.
But in fact, by going for the stomach and the digestive tract, as Valerie said, what the contents of that part of the body was generally grains and herbaceous plants. So it was an opportunity for the carnivores to pull in herbaceous elements as well.
Yeah.
That's right.
And our digestive system is also a 胞链. Is that called 胞链? Because we depends on a lot of bacteria in our digestive tract
In our
Yes.
to
Yeah.
take the energy out from the food we eat and then release it back to our body to use. So it's quite interesting in terms of that one. Okay, so this is a little diagram showing all these different types of things coming together. But I'm not a biologist, okay? Now we are now in the Holocene extinction event. It should be the largest extinction event ever seen in nature. It started at around 10,000 BCE, before current era. So it's before Christ, but we are big history, so we don't talk about Christ. We talk current era. So it's before current era. So it is about 1,000 to 12,000 years ago. So we started this extinction event by one species, which is called sapiens, Homo sapiens. The current extinction event is some argue is 100 times, some argue is about 10,000 times faster than the normal background extinction rate. The previous mass extinction events are all due to natural environment causes. For example, climate change, volcano activities, asteroid, and so forth. But this one is due to one species, human. Our human exposure in our population caused a huge decrease in diversity of our biosphere. We continue to use our world's atmosphere as an open sewer. So we are dumping at least 15 million tons of gaseous waste into our atmosphere. And then this man-made pollution already in the atmosphere traps as much extra energy every 24 hours as would be released by the explosion of 400,000 Hiroshima-class nuclear bombs. So we are trapping a lot of energy. So climate warming is happening. Remember, the glaciation is caused by the lack of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But too much carbon dioxide will drive up our global temperature, which will, at the same time, cause another extinction event. The Earth's water cycle is dangerously disturbed. Warmer oceans evaporate more water vapor into the air. Warmer air holds more moisture, and therefore, when it reaches the land, it will produce much larger downpours, causing larger and more frequent floods and mudslides. The extra heat is also absorbed in the top layer of the oceans, which make the ocean-based storms much more destructive. So we will be seeing storms much more powerful, floods much more powerful at the same time. At the same time, some part of the world will become drier because we are changing the weather pattern. The weather pattern change, so some areas would got too much moisture, and some areas will have too little. The ocean is a very important food source for billions. and having a warmer oceans means there will be more acidic. As it is more acidic, that means again many planktons can't exist on that. And extra heat also pulls moisture out of the soil, causing drought. Food crops are threatened not only by more pests and the disruption of long, predictable rainy seasons, dry season patterns, but the heat itself. Our ice-covered region is melting, so when we have less ice, that means our sea level will increase. And among of the ice, there is a region called permafrost. In the permafrost, there's a lot of methane. And when the permafrost melts, the methane will be released. The methane is even a stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. At the same time, we have viruses, bacteria, disease-carrying species going rampant. This year, 2020, is a typical example. Hopefully, it's not typical. It's a extraordinary example. We have the coronavirus at the beginning. Now, at that time, China experienced drought, but in the last month or two, China is now flooding. So in the next session in China today, we are talking about the 2020 flood in China. We just hope that we are not on the list of extinct species in this 6th mass extinction event. Okay, so that is my presentation today, and then we will now open up for discussion. Anyone want to start off the discussion? Albert, I think you like starting off. Come in.
I've already had my say.
Yep. Any comment?
I think humans are on the list for mass extinction because if the virus doesn't get us, the need to have a war or something will.
And I think we are now in a very difficult situation at the moment between the United States and China.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Since
So
we are
the
on
US
the
US cannot get its economy back without going to war.
Donald Trump cannot get elected without starting a war.
Well, they need it for the
100 days. What about the pandemic? What about the effect of that? Albert, can you stop sharing your screen so we can see each other better?
Yes, sorry about that, forgotten. Yep. Okay, we can see each other much better. Hello, everybody. I haven't say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Okay,
I
now.
think the other thing is that the world population is probably a bit too large for its carrying capacity.
Oh, don't say that.
If we came down that little bit, it would be easy to manage.
I would prefer to slow down our reproduction rates rather than killed by wars.
Natural bringing us back.
Somebody said before that talked about the seriousness of the pandemic. We have got over pandemics and viruses before. Waste Act may change slightly because of pandemic, but the pandemic won't completely obliterate humanity or anything like that.
I think the economic effects of the pandemic will be the more severe and will push us further towards what we started talking about, which was the possibility of war eliminating our
I feel as if we're being set up to be quite comfortable with the thought of war coming in maybe later this week.
Well, I have a request for everybody here. A group of 3 people, I myself included. Okay, I myself, and then there's a friend who is a lawyer, and then another KOL, David Sher. Three of us initiated an open letter to the United Nations General Secretary, asking the General Secretary to convene a UN Security Council meeting to resolve the conflict between US and China. We want to send out the open letter on 30th July. So we are seeking endorsers, seeking people to endorse our action. So I'm going to paste in the address for people to go online to fill in a form. Basically, what we are asking is your name, your nationality, and then what else? Name, nationality, and then whether you agree with our open letter. And then if yes, then submit the form. I have put it up in about 30 minutes ago. At the moment, I think I have collected, let's see, going back to here. At the moment, I have 258 responses. So I would like to reach about...
In how many minutes was that?
30 minutes.
That's in half an hour, is it?
Yeah, about...
30 minutes.
just before I started this. So maybe an hour. So if you can support us, then it is in your chat at the moment. So if you like, I can... I will read out the letter to you so that you know what we are talking about. The letter is said like that. Dear Secretary General, we are groups of Chinese key opinion leaders, KOL, living in Hong Kong, Special Administrative Region of China, or migrants domiciling in overseas. So we call ourselves Chinese and overseas Chinese. We are astonished by the outrageous speech delivered by the Secretary of State of the United States of America on July 24th at the Richard Nixon Library, which serves no purpose but to violate the protocol of the United Nations for non-interference with other countries' internal affairs. Contrary to Mr. Pompeo's unfounded allegations, the Communist Party of China, which is the ruling party of China for the last 70 years, has been supported by Chinese people with an unprecedented rate of 83%, published in July by the Ash Center of Harvard Kennedy School after a series of independent surveys in the last 17 years conducted in China. What link is provided? With respect, what Mr. Pompeo did has been stabilizing China with an obvious intention to invade the ultimate jurisdiction of PCP without any justification. As Chinese and ethnic Chinese, we feel obliged to seek endorsement from like-minded Chinese and overseas Chinese who have endorsed this open letter to you bilingually. The purpose of this open letter is to urge you to calling an urgent meeting of the United Nations Security Council to discuss a way to resolve recent conflicts between China and the United States. Both are the permanent members of the UNSC at your earliest convenience before it's too late to avoid an avoidable war between the top two leading economies, driving force of the group. Thank you. Dated this 30th July 2020. So that is the English version drafted by Professor Thomas Chiu, who is a international lawyer. He is now residing in Sydney. And I have also the Chinese version, which I won't read to you because you won't know what I mean when I read the Chinese version. But you will support this idea of asking the UN Security Council to have a discussion to resolve the U.S. and Chinese relationship, I think that will help a little bit. So the link is in the chat. So if you don't mind, please help me in supporting this and pass it onward to your friends and ask for more endorsements.
Gwen, are you going to say something?
Yeah, I was wondering whether you're talking about changing the type of government and wars and everything. I'm wondering whether we mightn't be more subjective to a dictatorship form of government more than we are at the moment in the future, as a way of getting over the global crisis, the monetary crisis. I'm not saying we're going to do it voluntarily.
Well, first of all, what kind of government in China is none of the rest world's business. We don't care what kind of government they are. Just like we don't want other countries to interfere the way of life we are living here in Australia. So if we enjoy our government, that's for us to say yes or no. Whether the Chinese people endorse their government, as said in the open letter, and that is done by the Ash Center of the John Kennedy School in Harvard University. Okay, and the research shows that 83% of the Chinese people inside China support their government. So that's none of our business to interfere with the Chinese government, where the government is so supported by its people. So I don't think whether the Chinese government is authoritarian or what is an issue here. The issue is the competition between United States and China must not become a hot war. Otherwise, we are doomed. The whole humanity is doomed.
I think our two ministers that are going there and risking the pandemic to go there are going to be asked to have nuclear missiles on Australian soil aimed at China. And that will invariably drag us in very quickly.
I think our politician is being selfish. We should have our own foreign policy. We should strike a balance between
the U.S. Embassy.
Yeah.
Our foreign
but,
policy.
yes.
I'm even wondering, though, even without going to war with China and whatever the consequences of that would be, I could even imagine that we'd be having a big, eventually turn to a dictatorship in Australia, probably through.
Sorry, your voice is breaking up. Can you repeat that?
I don't know about Australia, but sorry, I don't know that Australia will necessarily become a dictatorship. Certainly not in our life.
I hope so.
But we certainly have an we certainly have an authoritarian government in the United States at the moment, and when Trump leaves, the effects of what he has set in place will be there forever. And the United States has certainly changed dramatically forever in the last 3.5 years. I'm getting on to a side issue here, but the other thing that really concerns me about Trump, if he loses the election in November, will he accept that, or will he be like third world leaders and try and stay in power? And I think that's a big issue. It's highly probable.
Well, at the moment, there is a. Sorry, Sam. Let me finish that first. There is a argument that a lot of people believe that the two parties will not accept the result of the election, no matter which party wins, and United States may hence become develop into a civil war, and that's even more dangerous.
Well, it's not, because it'll stop them having a war with China, and that's better for us. Let them have a civil war. There's no loss there.
I think America's lost its world power somehow.
The whole
Actually, what-
flywheel of that American economy is defense spending. And you need a
No.
war every now and then. You can't keep stockpiling your stuff up in Texas. You've got to use it. I know they flog it to everyone across the planet, but they need a war to get out of this mess.
Yeah.
And they will have
Valerie,
they will have a
what
war.
you said at the beginning about a civil war, stopping a war with China, I disagree. China might come on side with one of the sides in an American civil war.
China doesn't have a record of being interested in getting into anyone else's domestic affairs. The US isn't getting into everyone else's domestic affairs. Everyone else.
And China.
That whole economy of the US is not around manufacturing anything but armament.
And printing money.
I'm concerned that in the U.S. they no longer have the will to fight. I don't mean,
Half of
I
them
don't
plugged out of their brains.
I don't mean sort of invading places. Yeah, they've got that. I mean, does that country have, which is my country, of course, does that country have the will to knuckle down, to save, to make sacrifices? The military in the U.S., to my mind, is going completely technology. So drones replace actually having to have a ship out on the sea or having to have an airplane in the air, and the reliance on actually putting your troops out there to fight. I don't think that country can do that anymore.
Well,
And
but they don't seem to care.
Civil war, but it's just I regard it as I guess.
Losing you.
You're frozen.
Have to go to our next.
Lost the connection, I think. So we see her stuck there.
She's frozen.
Froze. But anyway, time is almost up. I need to get prepared for the next one. So I think I will see you in the channel today, okay?
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Albert.
Well,
Thank you. So
Thanks,
I
Albert.
will,
Now we've got to go out and come in again.
yeah, go out and come in again.
Yes.
Okay.
See you later.
See you then.
thanks for the
Bye.
connection.
Well, make sure you leave. And then